Welcome to this edition of Extra Holes with PGA Master Professional Alex Kohler and PGA Professional Joe Rocha. Alex, welcome. And welcome everybody.
Yes, I'm excited about another episode, and let's impart some knowledge and have some fun.
Let's do it. So people are asking about the backswing. People are asking what they can work on specifically to improve their swing. So we've gotten some backswing questions.
Yeah.
What are we looking for in the backswing? What are we trying to do with the backswing? People have heard different things. They maybe have heard that the face needs to be a little bit closed. They maybe heard that the face needs to. There's all kinds of different things people are talking about the backswing. Any idea that you want to share about the backswing, Alex? What comes to mind when we talk backswing?
I just feel like, first of all, we chatted a bit off camera, and, I named a few different players, and they all have different backswings. I named Bubba Watson, Jim Furyk, Calvin Peete, Matthew Wolff. They all seem to have maybe an upright backswing versus, say, Ben Hogan or Trevor Immelman, their arms are very tight to the body. They almost appear like they could hold a towel under their arms and make a backswing. So you'd have to look at those players, maybe let's just say Chip Beck, Trevor Immelman. They're very, very connected players. A modern player I would be talking about would be, Rory. Rory is very connected. So is one backswing better than the other? I guess, that's what we have to say. Like, well, we know you don't hit the ball on your backswing. So you can't just say, well, I like this position better than this position. It's really after you get to the top, how are you changing directions? Where is the shaft going? And can you get it on plane coming down in the transition, change the direction, downswing? We had an episode, Joe, where we talked a lot about Carl Welty. Carl Welty only dotted the club on the downswing. He never dotted the club as the club goes back. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, Joe.
No, that's 100% correct. Yeah, he was just concerned with what was happening through impact.
The fact that John Daly was maybe a little inside, then up and across. The fact that Raymond Floyd was a bit inside. He didn't care about that. He cared about when you transitioned and started to get the club to fall and you were on your downswing or forward swing, he charted the club path. And as long as you were neutral for Carl, he said, bueno, you're great.
Yeah.
He didn't care what you're. So you can't say Bubba Watson, who's I believe he's two-time Masters champion, that his maybe real high hand position, he doesn't have a lot of connection between his trail arm and his body. He's got a very, very high look to his hands. You can't say that that's wrong or incorrect. Maybe visually you may say, I don't like that. I prefer someone who's got a little bit flatter position. But I would love to have two green jackets. I'd love to be as good as Bubba Watson,
Even Dustin Johnson gets his hands real high in the backswing.
Dustin Johnson. Now, a guy who's very, very connected and almost pure rotary, I would say Duffner,
Right.
Jason Duffner, who's a former PGA Championship. I know we just watched the PGA Championship on TV.
Yes.
He's a former PGA Championship winner, so he's a major champion. And if you watch Jason Duffner, he certainly could hold a towel under both arms and make a backswing. He's very, very connected. He's very wide, and I would say his backswing certainly is shorter than a lot of other guys versus
Yes.
say the high hands of
Yeah,
high
Bubba
hands of
DJ
Bubba, right?
or Daly or Nicholas.
Davis Love the third.
Davis Love.
So, I think the important thing is understanding where the club is. I think the player has to have a real understanding of where the club is in space. They know it's okay, it's high. They know where the club is. The club face, believe me, these players know they have a club face that's maybe slightly open or shut. Video is too prevalent in 2023. They've all seen their swings at this point, right,
Yeah.
Joe?
Oh, sure.
So, but if you know where the club is and you can get it there time in and time out, and then you can get it in a great position coming down, that's all that matters. Now, am I answering the question that maybe the people that, who asked you, Joe, can we get this information? Am I answering it the way they want it answered? Maybe not. Maybe they want to say, hey, tell me where I should go and I'll go there.
Right.
If I was teaching somebody in a private lesson, I certainly would work with them to get it to maybe their ideal position, because we all have different arm lengths and body types, and some people are 6'5", some people are 5'5". So I don't think there's one set position for everybody. I certainly wouldn't want to see everybody swinging with a towel under their arms, because I think that would limit, maybe some speed that they could generate. Jason Duffner, I don't believe, has ever been known for being one of the longest guys on tour.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
Well, maybe he's trying to get accuracy. He's giving up some distance by how he swings, short, compact, wide. So I think if one kind of understands where the club is, that's half the battle. I've seen people swing, Joe, where I know they have no idea where the club is. They just know that they can't see it anymore. It goes from, okay, I can see it, to now it's behind me. And I'm going to try to make some kind of motion and hope I hit the ball.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a recipe for great golf. So, I would suggest, Joe, that people make some swings, maybe right arm only swings, and actually even left arm only swings, and get a real good sense for where the club is and where their hands naturally go. If I was going to throw a club, I would turn and my hand would go somewhere where I would start the throwing motion. Do I want my hand behind my head? That doesn't feel comfortable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, people should be able to kind of say, okay, where would I, if I was going to throw something, where would I get the right hand? If I was going to match the right to the left, where would that be? Well, if they can find that position over and over, personally, I think that's half the battle. So there is no one size fits all. There is no one position that's perfect, because we've just seen too many, Hall of Fame players with totally different looks at the top of their swing. Laid off, cross the line, short of parallel, past parallel. So Unfortunately, Joe, I think the answer really lies in part of them getting in tune with where the club is and what they're doing. So they have to understand what they're doing physically.
Mm-hmm.
Feel, Joe, I think is very important in the golf swing. I need to understand how I'm moving. And, I think feel is, can you really talk about that in a lesson a lot? It's hard for a teacher to know what a student feels, right?
Right.
And but with a good coach student relationship, hopefully you can find that ideal spot for that player.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully they can start to strike the ball at their highest level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody can be on tour. I wish I was on tour. I'm not good enough. But so what I'd be curious, and those that watch our show know that we really don't script much. We really just kind of have some topics and we just chat. I'm wondering, you asked me the question, and I want to ask it back to you, Joe. What are you telling your students? Do you try to get them to a certain spot? Do you care if there's a lot of gap in the trail arm? Do you like it close to the side? Are you a guy that likes dumpster swing, kind of maybe more than a guy like Daly or guys that have more gap in their arm? What do you think?
Well, okay, so the great questions. Let me see if I can remember those and kind of take them sort of one at a time, because that gets right to the heart of it. I think we're going to agree with this. We're going back to how we hold the club is going to be highly influential in how the club moves back. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, if you have a real strong grip where the hands for a right-handed player are rotated to the right, then you're likely to twist the club sort of more around you and maybe be a little bit more flat. That's not always the case. You have Ryan Moore, who has a very strong grip, who sort of hinges it straight up. So I think the grip, how we hold the club, is where I'm starting with students. That in and of itself is going to start to create a certain pattern. And I know just from all of our talks that we like to teach the grip as sort of a neutral grip. And like all your research on all the top players over the generations show that there's a pretty common grip that tends to rise to the top levels in golf. So that's the one we prefer. Now there are exceptions, but when we teach people, that's the one that I'm teaching my students. So now after that, I really think people overdo the thought of trying to keep the arms close. As we talked about prior, and I think you alluded to too, yes, in the downswing, the right arm for a right-handed player is going to come in close. I mean, it just does because of the way we're moving our body and moving the club. But that doesn't mean just because it's supposed to be in close, and I don't even use that word. But if you look at pictures, and by the way, one of our mentors out at the Jim McLean School, Jerry Molds, once told us he thought still pictures almost ruined the game in a way. I know that's a little bit of a strong statement, but there can be a lot of misinterpretation about still pictures and even video. So anyway, back to the arm position. So I really try to get people out of the thought of trying to keep the arms so tight to their body. So I look at a position and this will be hard to describe, I'll do my best to describe it if people are just listening. But what I look for is when the club, so we're at setup, okay? When the club, we call it the first parallel, right? When the club shaft is parallel for the first time to the target line. So it's
To the ground.
To the ground, and it's about at hip high. So it's parallel to the ground, parallel to the target line. What I look for is for the club head to be at the height of the player's hands.
Well, it's not necessarily. I mean, and you know, I got to jump in. It's
Please.
not necessarily. The club at first parallel is when the shaft is parallel to the ground.
Right.
You know, if I stopped Matthew Wolff,
not necessarily.
Matthew Wolff at first parallel, his shaft is probably not parallel to the target line. Parallel to the ground, yes, not parallel to the target line. If I stop John Daly at first parallel, it would be also not parallel to the target line.
We're saying the same. Right. So you're talking about variations, that's a good analogy between Matt Wolff and John Daly, because Matt Wolff is going to be parallel to the ground, but not parallel to the target line, just like John Daly will be parallel to the ground, but not the target line. But
everybody has a parallel. It's just not always to the target line.
But if I'm teaching someone, especially a lot of new players are coming out for lessons, I'm not going to teach them Matt Wolff's swing or John Daly's swing. You know what I mean? So I'm just talking now. This gets into a discussion of allowing for differences, which is maybe a topic for another show. But if I'm just going to teach someone a standard, we'll call it simple motion, then I'm going to like to see that the club head is at the height of the hands. And I'm going to say this slowly so if people are confused, so that people won't be confused. So we're at the setup, we're starting the club back. The club now is parallel to the target line, and I believe it should also be parallel to the ground at the same time that it's parallel to the target line, where the club head is at the height of the hands, and the club face to me would be pretty much straight up and down. That's what I prefer to start back. And just a fact, what's been measured with now there's always exceptions, but the top tour pros is the left arm for a right-handed player is raising up approximately 90 degrees during the backswing. So that arm is lifting 90. So if you lift your arm 90 and then rotate your rib cage, you're going to be in a pretty standard-ish position. Now, when you lift the left arm, guess what? The right arm has to come with it. So it has to come off your body a bit, So I like to allow, like you said, for that sort of throwing position at the top. So those are the kind of things I like to see. And also I would add, the difficulty is the human body, we have the shoulders and arms that literally are plopped on top of the rib cage. Okay, pretty much. They're free to move. We have a tremendous range of motion with our arms and shoulders. So granted, the hands come together when we set up, but I think the important thing is to look at the segment below, and that would be the rib cage. So what can happen with people is they get dominant with the arms and they get dominant with the hands, wrists, arms, and maybe it pulls the rib cage out of center, so to speak. So what I like also is to help people to sort of connect rib cage to arms and think about a line going through the middle of their rib cage and more rotate around that line. So just to sort of coordinate some arm and rib cage motion. because I like I said, the tendency is for those arms to get across the body, the rib cage too much. And also another degrees stat, which I find a little bit remarkable, is the left arm is only crossing the rib cage about 10 degrees during the backswing with a lot of the top players. So the top players are getting a tremendous amount of rib cage rotation, along with some abdomen rotation, hip rotation, but I'm just focused on the segment below the arms. So they're getting a ton of rotation through the rib cage. So, but what we see with our students is that the arms dominate and come across the rib cage too much, and then the arms get stuck to the body, and that's when we start to see some movements that we don't like during the downswing, because people aren't in a really, like, they're not in that good centered throwing position where they can make a move into the downswing. So those are the things I like. I like to see a neutral grip. I like to see a sort of gradual, sort of curving action during the backswing. I like to see the club at the height of the hands when the club is parallel. And then I like to see some motion through the rib cage, somewhat centered. So that does a lot of the work. So people aren't overly dominant with the hands, wrists, arms. And then if I were to add one last thing, I would say, we're dealing with a lot of sort of myths, so to speak. People are, maybe have heard to keep their left arm, again, right-handed player. Sorry for the lefties out there, all these right-handed references, but, keeping the left arm straight. So a question I sometimes have fun with that I ask students is, do you know you have two bones in your forearm? And like, some people don't know that. So, the top bone rotates around the bottom bone. So even just to get some freedom in the motion of the arms, people, I think through no fault of their own, it's things they've heard. They're trying to keep the lead arm straight, and they're trying to keep their right arm close. And it doesn't make, even just saying it, I feel tense, it builds tension. And you're not getting that sort of you're not building those relationships from segment to segment of your body that you can then transfer into energy, as we've been talking about a little bit at impact. So did that make sense? Some of that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's what I would.
Yeah.
Posture. Posture is going to be huge too. Let's not forget that. Grip posture. That's why we say that's so important, because it's going to affect all these things. Otherwise, you're manipulating the club, and we know that's not. What do people ask us? They want to be more consistent. And so you need to be consistent. As a great friend of mine says, great teacher, great player too, is like, to be consistent, we need to be consistent with the setup.
For sure. That's
and that's overlooked. That's overlooked, right, Alex?
When we were at McLean, I remember, I want to say it was Jason Jenkins, a great teacher that was there. Well, we listened to everybody, but he's, I think he, a couple other, they said every lesson we have at least one setup fix. Usually, they're always adjusting someone's setup pre-swing, whether it's posture, alignment, grip. They said, it's not just let's jump into the swing. If you don't have the right platform, to build the skyscraper will fall over. So that foundation that's built pre-swing will support all that speed that you want to generate. But if you don't have the foundation, it'll just, it's a nice wish, but it's not really going to happen. So, when I'm talking to them, I said, so it's okay just to work on the setup for the whole lesson. And they said, if the student needs setup work, that is what you need to do. They're paying you for an hour, and you cannot do a lot in the swing if they don't have the right starting positions. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was great for me to hear as a young teaching professional, because you're like, oh my gosh, they're paying me for this hour. I'm getting this money. I need to just really conquer the world here. But if the lesson consists of redoing the grip a few times and doing the setup in a mirror, putting down a lot, that's the lesson that they need. And as teachers, we need to be confident enough in what we know to say, hey, this is the recipe for success for you. When you get this down, we can build a great golf swing on top of it. But how many people do we see lack a complete sense of what a good setup is? They have a poor grip, ball positions too far back, they don't align themselves correctly. It's like, well, we don't need to really work on the swing at that point, right?
Right.
We need
right.
to get you set up better. So
yeah. There's a great instructor, Mark Blackburn. He works with Max Homa, Charlie Hoffman, and he posted something recently. Davis Riley, who's an up and coming star, he won the team tournament in New Orleans this past I think it was a month or two ago. But he posted, they work on posture setup every lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that? So I mean, there's a tour player.
Yeah.
So I think the key thing too is, there's like a human element to this too, because when you're in the lesson, both teacher and student have to have that level of sort of like patience to work on the details. And sometimes that can be a challenging thing. But I think, like you said, I think us teachers have to be I'm talking about myself, to be a little more disciplined. You almost have to have a level of discipline to work on those fundamentals, because it's easy to get caught up in the reactions versus the actions. You know what I mean? The sort of fun stuff versus the detailed like setup work. That can be a little tedious, but it pays off. It pays off big time dividends. I mean, if we all worked on grip, posture, and a routine, I think that probably we should, I'm talking to myself now because I don't do it nearly often enough. Grip, posture, routine should be 10 minutes of every lesson we teach. That wouldn't be a bad thing.
If needed, I mean, when I get to a student and their grip is what I think it's optimal, I'm not going to just keep beating them up. I'll say, okay, you got the grip.
True.
And I'm willing to kind of just move on. But if they need grip work, then I will not skip over it. I won't.
Yeah.
So I know what the student needs. And if they have confidence and trust and faith in me as a coach, they won't mind. Hey, I'm not going to hit too many balls this lesson. I still need to do this. Okay, I don't have it. Because I think the student ultimately wants to get it down. They just need help.
Yeah. One of my favorite lessons I gave, it was a long time ago, but it was a junior player. He was struggling, and like we all do, and at certain points, and I put 4 balls on the tee. I said, those are the only balls we're hitting today. And and it ended up being, I think a good lesson. And he ended up, he was pretty committed to it, but he ended up being a good player. But Alex, Do you want to touch on the PGA Championship? Do you want you want to move on? I mean, the PGA just wrapped up. Unless you have
Well,
anything lastly to say about that backswing.
yeah, I do want to talk about. I want to finish the thought about the backswing and the connection of arms to body really is armpit to side. I think at least when I speak, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Joe. When I speak of connection, it's simply, can I trap something in my armpit? That would be connecting my arm to my side. So I remember as a junior, I used to hit balls with a golf glove under my arm, and I used to try to keep it there and hit balls. That would be connection in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember getting Nick Faldo's instructional video, and he was talking about his wedge game. And he grabbed a full towel, full white towel, and put it under both arms. And he talked about hitting wedge shots with the towel under his arms and keeping it there. He never said, I'm hitting full drivers with this towel. He never said, I'm hitting full irons with this towel. He said, this is, maybe a 50 to 60 yard or lower, 30, 20, 10, it doesn't matter. He goes, this is just a wedge connection drill that I work on with my coach, David Ledbetter. I said, great, I'm going to do that drill.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Faldo is great. If you do it, I'm doing it. I have a video of Jason Day, who's, he's a major champion and a multiple tour winner. And when he hits wedge shots, I have the video. He goes, I put a towel under my arms and I hit my wedge shots. He never said I'm hitting drivers.
Mm.
So I want to let the audience know there is some sort of room to say, hey, I'm going to be maybe more connected on smaller shots, but on bigger swings with maybe a little bit more turn, I can have the freedom to get a little higher with the hands, and there's going to be a little bit of room between my upper right arm and body. So can you practice wedge shots with a towel? For the people listening, yes, you can. I think it's a great drill. Did you tee up full swing drivers with a towel? I really wouldn't go that far with it. Some people on the PGA Tour look like they have. Jason Duffner comes to mind, okay? But most have some sort of play there. There's some room there. And I think you should have some room there. I don't think it should just be stuck to your side for all full swings. So my last thing, Joe, would be, if you're going to work on wedges, I like the connection. I'll put a towel under there. I think it's good. For fuller swings, I don't think I'd recommend a connection with both arms that is so strict where the towel can't drop. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. And I think it sort of makes sense if you did put the towel under, then you'd have to rotate. I know Nick Faldo was big with the rotation, then the rotation has to dominate over the.
It's the catalyst of what's moving, right?
So
it's the engine. I'm turning to the right. I'm turning to the left. The ball's not going to go anywhere. The bottom of the swing is good. It's going to be there. If I can pivot, wouldn't that be the simplest concept to have? Versus what am I doing here? Am I swatting flies? Am I killing bees? Yeah. Pivot. Connection. I think that's a simple way to hit wedges. But I don't know if you want to, max it out with full swings. That would be my concern, and something that you should work with your PGA pro on to kind to find the right balance for
No, I like
for the listeners out there.
I like that distinction.
So as I think we're gonna go a little, maybe not as long tonight. We can maybe do 10 minutes on the PGA and
Sure.
say
Yep.
goodnight to everybody, or
Perfect.
I'm gonna do 5 minutes and then you do 5 minutes. How's that?
That's cool.
So I thought it was high drama throughout. I enjoyed every day. I didn't like to see that it got, inclement weather certainly hurts maybe the morning draw or the afternoon draw. I'd prefer to see nice weather so we get everyone's playing under the same conditions, but that's not, golf. Sometimes it rains in the morning and they kind of suffer, and then the sun comes out in the afternoon, and then, but I thought the venue was, man, did that look challenging.
Oof.
It's a tough course. The rough was penal. If you got in the rough, it was certainly, sometimes you just got to chop it out. So it certainly led to people who could hit the fairway would be more successful on the week. That if because that rough was really not kind to some people. Obviously today we know that Brooks Koepka won. I thought he was strong the whole tournament. But it wasn't a surprise to me that he won. I knew that if Brooks could finish Saturday in the lead or a shot out of the lead, very close, I thought Brooks was going to really be a force to be reckoned with on Sunday, because he's already got 2 PGA trophies in his collection. He's already got 2 U.S. Open trophies in his collection. He knows how to close the deal, Joe. It's not like, wow, this is going to be my first win. How do I do it? This guy has a real way inside him to come up with his best golf when it counts the most. He's had more success in the majors than he has had in other tournaments. So I thought it was a great battle between himself and
Big Hovland.
Victor. He's great. Victor had kind of a bad break in the bunker, which kind of decided at the end. It made Brooks's win much easier, where all he had to do was 2-putt. Not to take anything away from Brooks, he played great, and Victor played great too. I thought it was high drama. And then the PGA Professional, there was one that made the cut. Give me his name. Is it Rock?
No, it's oh my gosh. Might need to do some editing.
It's like Brooks or Rock or
yeah.
That's too bad we can't come up with his name.
That's terrible.
Anyway, he played up phenomenal. He had a hole-in-one today. I want to say is it Rock?
That's absolutely awful. Block.
So, yeah, he played phenomenal.
Michael Block.
First time he's made the cut in I think 7 tries. But to be able to play in the PGA Championship 7 times tells you a lot about, the longevity of how long he's played good golf. Made the cut, and he really maxed out the tournament. Had a hole-in-one today on Sunday. Got to play with Rory. Got up and down on the last hole to finish inside the top 15, which puts him automatically into next year's PGA Championship.
He deserves that after the week he had. I was so glad to see him get into next year's.
So he was kind of the second story besides, Brooks. Bryson DeChambeau played solid. Scotty Scheffler is always there at the end. Scotty just kind of ran out of holes. I mean, if that tournament was a few extra holes, he was definitely coming.
Yeah.
But I thought it was high drama. I enjoyed watching it. I'm happy for Brooks Koepka. 5 majors is certainly a Hall of Fame career, in my opinion. And I don't think he's done winning majors, Joe. I think he's going to win several more. Because he's big time Brooks in my eyes. The bigger the stage, the better he plays. So, what are your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, he came out firing today. So he learned something from the Masters. He wasn't really willing to share it, but he learned something in the mentality he took to the course today was different than the Masters, and he said he would never make that mistake again. So it could have been something where, being the leader of a tournament, you're being sort of chased. So the guys behind, or the ladies behind, ladies event, can kind of freewheel it and can sort of catch the leader in a lot of cases. So I think Brooks, I'm guessing, may have taken a leader's mentality into the round, in the sense that, I'm not going to wait for people to catch me. They're going to have to catch me. I'm racing out. I've got a shot or two lead. I'm going to make it. I'm going to go out further, so they have an even more difficult time to catch me, something like that. But he came out firing. Did he birdie the first 3 out of 4 holes? It was an incredible.
I think it went par, birdie, birdie, birdie.
It was an incredible start. It was an incredible.
He was impressive, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like he was making 30 footers. I mean, he was hitting it like 8 feet, 4 feet, with the hole cut. One of the holes, I think it was the second hole, was cut 3 feet, 3 yards from the right and 3 yards from the front. Puts it, 4 feet. So I think his mentality was, I'm going to be aggressive where I can be and put this thing away. So that nobody could really catch him. I mean, I think the thing is too, it leads into the discussion of, LIV and the PGA. And my thought is, I had this discussion with somebody recently, is, when you talk about the PGA Tour players, you're talking about, how can you put it into words? You're talking about incredibly talented people that play the tours, whether it's the LPGA Tour, the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, the Asian Tour, etc. So when you're talking about that caliber of player, you're talking about a rare talent. But then within, we see it in all the sports. Within the sports, there's a handful, maybe you'd say, of players that separate themselves from that level of talent. So you have almost like an elite level, and then you have like a super elite. You're talking like the Kobe Bryants and the LeBron James and the Larry Birds and the Magic Johnsons and the Jack Nicklauses, and to take it to modern day, the Brooks Koepkas, the Scotty Schefflers, the Rory McIlroys, the Xander Schauffele's. Then you get people who are sort of on the bubble on that elite level. So my point is, whether you're playing for LIV or you're playing for the PGA Tour, it's just nice to see them all come together. Because, say if Rory's not playing well, or Justin Thomas didn't have a good tournament this week, well, Brooks Koepka was there to pick up the slack, so to speak, to make it a highly, highly competitive event. But if you don't have those players in the field, you're taking away, if you have if you have 20 real elite guys and then you split them up, now all of a sudden you only have 10 elites. And if those guys start to not play very well, then you don't have that. I just like everybody to be all the guys to be there together competing. I think it's great. I think it was great. I think the Masters was great. I think the PGA Championship was great. And it pushes everybody to be better. And that's what we're looking for. If Brooks isn't So anyway, it'll be interesting because now they're talking Ryder Cup, Alex. They're saying, look, I think Zach Johnson came out and said if Brooks qualifies on points, I'm gonna pick him. He's gonna be on the team. So it's gonna be interesting to see over the next few months what happens.
Well, to piggyback on your thought there, I'll say my thought is if you qualify for the major, you should be in the major. I don't think LIV should get official world golf ranking points. I don't believe that 54 holes without a cut deserves ranking points. That aside, you know, if they are exempt because they won a major, or if they're in the top, you know, they should all be able to play the tournaments if they're qualified to play in the tournaments. But I do not feel LIV should qualify for world ranking points. I don't think they should be able to earn it unless they change their tournament process. If they add another round and they have cuts, I'm going to change the way I think about that. So, I mean, if there were players that might have qualified if they stayed on the PGA Tour because they would have earned points and they would have got in, that they didn't get in because they went to LIV, I don't feel bad for them at all. I wish them the best on the LIV Tour, but I don't believe at all they should get ranking points on that tour. It's such a small field, no cut, 54 holes. So listen, Brooks, he's a major champion. He's exempt for, you know, he's exempt in the PGA, I think, until he's 60, right? Once you win the PGA, can't you play it until you're like 60?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I believe
he doesn't have to worry. I don't think
John Daly is still playing the PGA because he's not 60 years old yet.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
You're, you know, in Masters, once you win the Masters, you can play until, I don't know if there's an age limit or not. It didn't used to be an age limit. You could play until you wanted to play.
Yeah.
And then when you want to retire. So, you know, Sergio, he won the Masters. He has every right to play in the Masters every year until he chooses not to. I just hope that the majors don't shut the door on these players if they've qualified. We as viewers want to see the best players compete for the biggest trophies. I want to see the best players compete. I don't want to see top players be excluded because they're not on the PGA Tour. But
the
if for
problem
some reason,
is,
Joe, they didn't qualify. If they didn't qualify, then they didn't qualify.
Alex, let me ask you a quick question, and then we'll wrap it up. If you were if you qualify, if they invited you to play a LIV Tour event, and by the way, I don't know if we mentioned it, but Alex, I have the highest respect for Alex and his playing ability, his ball striking ability. He thinks I'm like embellishing. I'm not. He hits it like a tour player. But if they, as an aside, I just wanted to get that out there. But and we'll talk about that more later. But anyway, say they invited you to play a LIV event.
Okay.
Okay. Hypothetical, you're playing. You're in the field. And you're in the field like in 2 weeks. And you finish 5th, and Brooks Koepka finishes 10th. You don't think you should get a few you don't think you should be on the radar of the world rankings? I mean, say right now pick a number, 5,000, whatever. You don't think you should be like 3,500 for like competing like successfully with Brian? I know there's no cut, but you played against some of the best players you played against some of the best players in the world, and you competed successfully relative to those players.
Yeah. And
so I think, you know, just as do you still think you shouldn't get any points?
So, you know, on the first hole, I happen to pay my greens fees, and I go to the first hole as a single. On the first tee is Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, and Cam Smith. They're like, "Hey, are you a single? You want to join us?"
Yeah.
Sure. I beat them all.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a dream.
Right.
Should I get world ranking points because I beat them on a Monday? No. We played 18 holes. There's no cut. It's 4 people in a group. No, I should get 0 points. I should just be able to tell people I got to play with these guys and I beat them. That's the story I get to tell people when I go to a restaurant. But
Okay.
no, I get 0 points. Well, what if I got to play 2 days in a row with them and I won? Should I call hey, I want some points? 0 points. Now,
It's
what
funny.
if I beat them in a full field event for 72 holes and had a cut? Give me some points.
It's funny. I think back in the day, that's how you sort of played the tour. Like, I mean, we're talking back in the day, right? If you played and you competed successfully, they're like, yeah, come on. You like join the tour. But okay, so I'll give you the last word. You're gonna stick to your guns on that. That's your opinion, and that's fair. I just think it's gonna be really hard. You say on the one hand, you want the best players to compete, but on the other hand,
that qualified for the
but if they have no ability to qualify, other than Brooks being the rare exception where he's a major machine, a lot of the other players aren't going to be able to qualify because
why not?
Well, because they're not able to.
The U.S. Open has open qualifying. Correct me when I'm wrong. The British Open has open qualifying. The PGA Championship, I don't know if it does have open qualifying.
Maybe not.
Does it?
I think it's. I don't think you can qualify now.
But the Masters, you have to either have a victory, win the Masters, or be ranked high enough. But 2 out of the 4 majors, they can all qualify, can they not? Correct me when I'm wrong.
No, those are opens, and they can qualify. And I think they can go play on their off weeks. They can go. They can play maybe the Asian Tour, maybe some DP World Tour events, and get some points there. So they're going to have to just work around it. But Alex, what do you think? You want to leave it there? We could go on and on as we usually do.
I think it's a good Sunday. We'll leave it there.
All right.
And
cool.
We'll start up another one, in the very, very near future. And we'll do some more golf talk.
Well, congratulations to Brooks Koepka. Congratulations to Brooks Koepka and PGA professional Michael Block. Incredible performance out there, Alex.
Very cool.
Yes, so
always
cool.
A pleasure, Joe.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Alex. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Alex, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Happy golfing, everyone.